Good evening. My name is Duncan McRae, and I am here representing the Samaritan Counseling Center Board of Directors. We gather here today to celebrate and honor many of the heroes of our city and region, those who have worked tirelessly, endlessly during this time of contagion. We welcome all of you, visitors and honorees, as we recognize these special people and those special businesses that have risen to the call of service to help us, the citizens of Montgomery, help us to labor through this time of plague. Two things I wish to mention at the outset. Number one, to make a list that includes every hero of our city is an impossible task. We recognize that inevitably some people will not have been included, and for that we humbly bow our heads. Know that we have tried to be as inclusive as possible. And number two, a word directed towards Samaritan's Executive Director, Mr. Kerry Coleman. His work has made this celebration possible. Without his enormous efforts and guidance, this celebration would not have happened. Thank you, Kerry. 1 year ago, when we last convened for this event, we were directly in the midst of the viral infestation. There were fewer tables, fewer guests, and no vaccine available for months to come. And now, 12 months down the road, we have the vaccine, and we've had it for about 10 months. And yet the virus remains with us, but in an even more virulent state. A few months ago, in June, most of us thought that by today, October 7th, we would be free of this beast. But here we are, with the virus still clawing at us, challenging our lives, our healthcare system, our economy. Over these past months, since the virus began, everyone in this room has been touched in some way by this illness. This virus is not a new acquaintance. It has visited all of us in some large or small way. Some of us have been touched minimally and think that perhaps too much has been made of COVID. Others of us have been absolutely destroyed by it, financially, personally, emotionally, you name it. But we, the citizens of River Region, are lucky. We're lucky because we are surrounded by people who, during this dreadful time, have been dedicated to our well-being, dedicated to taking care of us in 1,000 ways, some of which we may not even be aware of. They have helped us by educating and informing the uninformed, by procuring food for those who are hungry, by obtaining medication for those who need it, by supplying transportation for those without it, and by treating those who are ill, and by providing comfort for those who desperately need it. It is time we show our thanks to those who have done so much for so many. I am heartened for our future because of all the people we're celebrating this evening. Most of these people are quiet heroes, people you haven't heard of. Tonight, these quiet heroes will no longer be quiet. Tonight, they will become loud heroes. These people have performed feats that have changed our lives, maybe even saved our lives, and yet they have never sounded their own cymbals to announce what they have done for us. Nor do they seek to be recognized. We are surrounded in this room by individuals who have given selflessly, who have given more than their fair share, who continue to give, not for themselves, but for us, so that we may stay well if we are well and get well if we are ill. It is right and fitting that we recognize these remarkable people who have served us, our city, and our region. It is right to show our thanks for what they have done and for what they continue to do. Not only is it right and fitting, it is time. We will begin our program tonight by introducing our healthcare heroes. And to introduce these heroes will be a healthcare hero himself, Dr. John Morehouse.
I'm John Morehouse, an emergency physician in Montgomery at Baptist Medical Center South, and a member of the Board of Directors of the Samaritan Counseling Center. I'm honored to present to you a small subset of the thousands of healthcare heroes who have tirelessly served the Montgomery River region through this pandemic of COVID-19. These men and women have provided direct care to the patients at the scene of injury or illness, in the emergency departments, the ICUs, inpatient hospital beds, and outpatient facilities. They've staffed our testing centers and vaccination clinics. They've educated the professional community on the best treatment practices and the lay community on the best personal practices to avoid and handle the virus. We're proud to recognize the first responders, the physicians, the nurses, and other frontline workers in the River region, the Baptist Healthcare System, the Jackson's Hospital System, Montgomery pulmonary consultants, team health, emergency physicians, hospitalists, nurse practitioners, physician assistants, and management staff. Health Services, Inc., Alabama Department of Mental Health, Montgomery Area Mental Health, Crossbridge, and other mental health facilities. American Family Care, and other urgent care centers. The Medical Association of Alabama, the Medical Society of Montgomery County. Now please join me now in watching this short video highlighting some of these healthcare heroes. Thank you.
Well, in a lot of ways, it seems like a very long time ago, but our journey goes back to appropriately Friday, March 13th of 2020, when we had the first identified COVID positive patient at Baptist Medical Center East. And while we anticipated having COVID in our community, we never knew what we were getting into, and there's just absolutely no book, no precedent for what we had to do or how quickly we had to do it.
We were scared. We did not know how it was transmitted. We didn't have any treatments. We didn't know about treatments. We didn't have protection. So the first thing we did is trying to get protection for our nurses, respiratory therapists, people in the contact. The Medical Association particularly has been great by doing webinars and trying to educate not only doctors but the public about what to do.
I think one of the things that was most interesting, and one of the things I was most proud of, was after that March 13th diagnosis and the recognition that we did have COVID in our community, we were able to, by the following Monday, create the state's first drive-through mass testing facility. And that was something we had no experience with and certainly had nothing to benchmark off of. But that Monday morning, after that Friday event, we actually had a press conference that included the mayor, community leadership, city, county, but also from the Air Force Base as well. It's been a difficult 18 months. It's also been incredibly rewarding. At Baptist Health, we've seen heroic deeds every day. Amazing people doing amazing things, amazing innovations, finding ways to do what we have no experience doing, both for our inpatients, but primarily for our community, whether it's that mass vaccination clinic with community collaboration, or whether it's mass testing, and now even doing infusions with monoclonal antibodies, just finding ways to do what we can to combat COVID in this community, and we do it with partners all over this region.
The doctors always call heroes. We're not the heroes. The heroes are the respiratory therapists, the nurses. They're taking care of these people 24/7. There are a lot of providers that have died of COVID. So it's hitting everybody. And I'm so proud of these people, these men and women in those ICUs and COVID units from Baptist Hospital, Prattville Hospital, Jackson Hospital, and the River region that have stepped forward and sacrificed their own lives.
It's a calling. We've seen an awful lot of bad things. We've seen an awful lot of heroic things. But there are a lot of things that are going to have to be dealt with over time. And it just hasn't let up, but it will.
Good evening. My name is Pete Cobb. I practice law here in Montgomery and am Vice President and a member of the Board of Directors of the Samaritan Counseling Center. It's my honor this evening to present to you just a few of the thousands of government heroes who have tirelessly served the Montgomery River region throughout the COVID-19 pandemic. These men and women work at the city, county, and state levels of government and have been responsible for establishing and implementing new policies, procedures, protocols, and systems that have protected countless numbers of our citizens and lessened the spread of the deadly COVID-19 virus. It is our honor and our privilege to recognize the Office of the Governor of the State of Alabama, the Alabama Department of Public Health, the City of Montgomery, the Montgomery County Commission, the Montgomery Police Department, the Montgomery City County Emergency Management Agency, and our police and fire and rescue first responders, along with the local governments of the town of Pike Road, the City of Prattville, and Autauga County. Please join me now in watching a short video highlighting just a few of our many government heroes. Thank you.
You know, when we were first sort of beginning to understand the disease, again, we realized that this was, it dawned on us eventually, this was really going to, in fact, impact every single part of our society. And so we began to work, again, with local governments, you know, all over the state as a way of trying to keep them informed so they could keep their own citizens informed, as a way of trying to recruit them to let us know about significant things happening in their community with, for example, their health care infrastructure or, you know, things like hospitals, nursing homes, and those types of things.
It can't be underestimated what each action means when people decide they want to be helpful. And we have so many organizations that played a vital role in helping individuals, helping other organizations, and helping us to kind of make decisions from a government perspective that would be more impactful than maybe some things that we thought about initially. I think having the guidance of our COVID-19 task force, which was made up of medical professionals, doctors, healthcare providers and administrators, as well as others in the community, they have proven to be, you know, truly invaluable to us in our approach at the city and the county, I believe, in how we have tried to do things around this region to assist our residents and to keep them healthy and safe as much as we can.
The pandemic really was a surprise to everybody. We had never gone through this before. And it was a no-brainer that we needed to come together for the people that we represent, and mainly also for our employees, for the city and the county.
I have a lot of hope for our community. I have a lot of want for our community to improve. And I think seeing those efforts for people that didn't have to get out of their home even though they were scared, that weren't paid members of our community, the public first responders and things like that, to have those people that were out there and volunteering. We had amazing people. Diane Oding was out there every day. She got out of the hospital the day before our second dose clinic, and she was back out there to volunteer because she just wanted to be a part of it. There's a lot of hope. There's a lot of hope for one day to not hear the word COVID again and to just be able to get back to normal.
I am Todd Etheridge with Trustmark Bank in Montgomery and a member of the Board of Directors of the Samaritan Counseling Center. I am honored tonight to present to you a few of the dozens of business heroes who loyally served the Montgomery River region during the COVID-19 pandemic. These businesses generously organized employee volunteers and donated food, personal protective equipment, and funds to provide for those in need of physical, financial, and moral support. We take this opportunity to recognize just a few of the businesses in our community which engaged in supporting our community. Alabama Power, Aflac, Allstate Insurance, Beauty and Beyond, Beasley Allen, Chappie's, Charter Spectrum, Chick-fil-A Food, Chris's Hot Dog, Dreamland Barbecue, Full Moon Barbecue, Global Center for Medical Innovation, Grace's Photography, Hyundai Motor Manufacturing of Alabama, Irish Pub, Max Credit Union, Mobis, Sam's Club, Trustmark Bank, Terrain Pharmetco Medical Supply Service. Please join me now in watching a short video highlighting a few of these heroes.
2020 came and COVID hit with all of its restrictions. It caused us to really pause and think about, so what did we need to do as far as not just a business model, but on the civic and humanitarian side, what could we do to help our neighbors? And a lot of those were from food banks, foster care facilities, Brentwood Children's Home here in the Montgomery area, those in the Good Samaritan Counseling Center. I mean, there were a lot of people that were displaced from work There were a lot of people that were worried about keeping their home and paying utility bills. And so we really doubled down in a lot of those service organizations that are served by United Way and others, particularly that affected children. We looked at educational needs and what could we do to help support the different methods that cities and counties and elected officials and school boards were trying to continue to educate our children. So we actually took a long pause and came up with a whole new plan on what we wanted to do in that area, because we wanted to try our best and make a difference.
We focused on organizations that were fighting food insecurity due to loss of employment. We also wanted to focus on organizations that were helping out local businesses. Max and our Max for Kids Foundation ended up donating over $105,000 in COVID relief to our communities.
As a photographer, I had events, weddings, people who were not able to do the things that they were hoping to do. I felt a little bit helpless and a little bit lost and stuck at home. And so I thought, I was stuck at home, everyone was stuck at home. What could I possibly do to kind of help everybody out? And I had been talking to some other photographer friends around the country and had heard about this idea that people had been doing porch portraits. So I kind of just threw it out there on a whim on my social media, just to my clients, saying, hey, if I did this, you know, to raise some money to help restaurants. I have friends in the restaurant business. I thought we could buy gift cards, help the restaurants. We could give those gift cards to the hospital workers, kind of cheer them up a little bit. You know, who would be interested in this? And surprisingly, the next day, my email was flooded with people who are like, yes, please sign me up. And then it just really snowballed from there. It blew up more than I possibly could have imagined.
You know, one thing I learned during this and any other time in a crisis, you just really rely on people and your faith. And without either one of those, what do you have? If you're solitary and you don't really spend your time with God and with your family and with people, what do you got? Doesn't matter how much money you have or what you have. When your health crumbles and your finances crumble, if you don't have God and family to lean on and friends, and you're in trouble. And I think this shows that our priorities were probably a little out of whack, and we need to focus more on those things. But, you know, I partnered up with Jerry Kaiser Builders, who's my partner in the stores, and we did some food for the hospitals and some assisted living facilities. We're optimistic. I think that we've shown our resilience as a city and a state, and that if we work together, we'll put this behind us and move forward. But, you know, thankful for all my family and friends and our customers that have supported us, and my partners, and it's been an unusual time, and I'm personally looking forward to what's next.
I'm Kim Klass with Fraser Church in Montgomery and a member of the Board of Directors of the Samaritan Counseling Center. I'm so honored tonight to present to you several heroes from our nonprofit community who served the Montgomery River region during the COVID-19 pandemic. These agencies continue to deliver on their missions in spite of the challenges presented by the restrictions of the pandemic. We take this opportunity to recognize just a few of the nonprofit agencies which continued supporting our community. Boys and Girls Club, Caring for Citizens of Alabama, Central Alabama Community Foundation, River Region United Way, the Chamber of Commerce of Montgomery, Child Protect, Common Ground, Gift of Life Foundation, Hands on River Region, the Homeless Veterans Association, Hope Inspired Ministries, Montgomery Area Food Bank, the Montgomery Area Homeless Coalition, Montgomery Volunteer Lawyers Program, the Red Cross, Sunrise Rotary Club, Southern Poverty Law Center, That's My Child, and the YMCA Montgomery and Prattville. Please join me in a video featuring several of these nonprofit agencies.
When COVID hit in March of 2020, one of the first things we realized is that our first responders needed to be available to take care of everyone, but then what happens to their children? And we know, because of the work that we do, that many of our community's children don't know where their next meal is going to come from if they're not able to go to school, because many of them are on free and reduced lunch, and they do receive breakfast and lunch when they're in school. And we take care of a lot of the after school, evening times, weekends anyway, but then knowing that they weren't going to be able to have breakfast and lunch really concerned us. So we gathered together with our staff and members of our board to say, okay, how can we meet this need? So we increased our capacity tenfold with our mobile feeding unit called the Brown Bag Bus. It was serving about 37,000 meals in addition to the about 400,000 meals that we serve already just internally in our centers. But when COVID hit, it amped up to the 9th degree and began to serve almost 200,000 meals just during that 9 months of 2020.
2020 was a year that impacted everyone, not only just people within the river region, but across this entire globe. If regardless of what industry you were in, it's been impactful one way or the other. One of the things that I think that 2020 really did is created even more of an opportunity for organizations to collaborate, to work together. And this was a perfect example with United Way and CACF, Central Alabama Community Foundation.
We knew we had to do it together. There was no way that we could do it separately. So I placed a phone call to the United Way and said, we want to do this, do it with us. And they said, of course, yes, we are in. And within 2 days, we were able to kick it off and launch this relief fund. And then within 2 weeks, we were giving money out. And it was only because the two organizations came together that we were able to do everything so quickly. It just showed the love that our community has for each other, whether we are in need ourselves or we're providing need. Everybody's there together.
No one saw this coming. I've lived a long time, never seen anything quite like this. This was the Montgomery Area Food Bank's finest hour. During this pandemic, with all of its challenges, our food distribution went up from 28.5 million pounds to 31.5 million pounds. And it's incredible. I just have a phenomenal staff.
Anytime you look into a child's eyes, that gives you hope. And it makes you want to do the best that you can for that one child. And then, of course, that grows collectively when you take a look at all of them across our community. And I think that's what the Y does, is that they do provide hope for so many of our future.
Good evening, friends. What a blessing it is for me as the pastor of First United Methodist Church in Montgomery, Alabama, to serve as a member of the board of directors for the Samaritan Counseling Center. Not only is the ministry of the Samaritan Counseling Center vital to Montgomery and the River region, it is a central part of the congregational care ministries of First Methodist. And we, like you, give thanks to God for their tireless work to care for the least, the last, the lost, and the lonely in our community. I am honored tonight to present to you a number of faith-based heroes who have served a multitude of people in need in the River region during the COVID-19 pandemic. In addition to providing care to their own congregations, many churches organize volunteers to resource our first responders and the community in general with food and housing, personal protective and personal hygiene equipment, and what they do best, to provide prayer. Here are but a few in the faith-based community which did so much outreach and support for those in need. Mercy House, Beacon Light Church, Caring for Citizens of Alabama, Centerpoint Fellowship Church, Century Church, Christ Church, Church of the Highlands, East Montgomery Islamic Society, Fan into Flame, Church of God, Faith Radio, First Baptist Community Ministries, First United Methodist Church of Prattville, Flatline Church, Fraser Memorial Church, Free Will Missionary Baptist Church, Friendship Mission, Hilliard Chapel AME Zion Church, Hope Inspired Ministries, Hutchinson Missionary Baptist Church, Metropolitan United Methodist Church, Montgomery Baptist Association, Reality and Truth Mission, Resurrection Catholic Missions, River City Church, St. Paul AME Church, Salvation Army, Trinity Presbyterian Church, the United Methodist Children's Home in Brace, Alabama, and Vaughn Forest Baptist Church. Please join me in watching a brief video featuring some of the faith-based heroes.
In 2020, we experienced something that I believe that none of my forefathers or ancestors really would have experienced. We experienced a pandemic, and I'll never forget being able to receiving emails that said clergy needed to come together for an advisory meeting at the hospital. And I thought to myself, what do we need to be advised of? And literally, rapidly, among a couple of days, a couple of weeks, our entire community, our entire way of doing things changed. So I'm so grateful that over this past year, during the pandemic at Metropolitan, we were able to experience being the hands and feet. And being the hands and feet included us serving not only through a virtual GED program with literacy support, but as well as a mobile food pantry program. And that mobile food pantry program last year served over 19,000 households and moved over 70 tons of food. And that is really because of just genuine partnerships and relationships. And so we're so grateful to all of those partners, those volunteers that stepped up and served alongside with us, for so many co-labored with us for us to meet the needs of our neighbor. And during that process, we were just so grateful that it just wasn't about the food, but it was also about other resources that were vital to our community that were able to be supported by the mobile food pantry.
Last year, COVID-19 hit all of us, and woke up in the middle of the night, say, we got to figure out how to get this done. Nonprofit workers are kind of stuck. You know, we serve people who are in need, and we knew that we had nowhere to go. So I pick up the phone, I call three of the guys. I call Salvation Army, I call River City Church, and I call 211. You know, and we said, hey, listen, let's have a conference call. This was 6 o'clock, I text. Let's have a conference call at 7, try to figure out what we could do to, you know, safe practice and better serve the community. And that one morning we had 3 of us on the call, and we realized that we need to get back together soon. We found out we didn't have enough information, didn't know all the things that was going on. So we said, can we meet back Wednesday? And we did Wednesday, and from Wednesday we invited other people to come. And from that conference call, we ended up with, throughout the Tri-Rivers, from Prattville, Pike Road, when we closed that conference call at the end of the pandemic, and not the end of it, but when we realized that we was getting information out, we had over 270 people on 3 times a week, you know, working together, bridging together, and trying to better our community. We had the school system, we had the mayor's office, we had the governor's office, we had people from DC on, we had Terra Sue office. We had everybody on that call, you know, just because we realized that we needed to bridge a gap, and everybody bought into that, and we kind of bridged this Tri-River together and made it a better place.
Good evening. I'm Rachel Gallagher. I work at Montgomery Academy, and I'm proud to serve as a member of the Board of Directors of the Samaritan Counseling Center. I'm honored tonight to present to you a few education heroes who worked diligently during COVID-19 pandemic to continue educating our children. These institutions supported first responders with housing, provided laptops and Wi-Fi connections to continue learning experiences, and through incredible efforts pioneered practices using existing resources and tools in new and different ways. So many of their innovative efforts will continue to provide benefits down the road to students and families in our community. We take this opportunity to recognize the Alabama Department of Early Education, Auburn University at Montgomery, our Governor's Office, Montgomery Public Schools, Alabama State University, the Watauga County Board of Education, and Montgomery Education Foundation. Please join me in watching this short video featuring a few of these education heroes.
Obviously, with COVID-19, this was a big surprise to everybody. I remember March 13th, 2020, all of us had to kind of leave the university, teach online, and go home and try to figure this out. Once we figured out what was going on, we started to work with our community. We pride ourselves at Auburn University at Montgomery to be a community-minded, partnership-oriented institution. We feel like we're, in Montgomery, we're a River Region institution to help our community. So we were approached initially by Baptist Health because many of the nurses did not want to go home to their families being exposed and working in the hospitals and working with COVID patients. We were approached by Baptist Health, and so we offered rooms at our residence halls for about 3 months free of charge for those nurses and medical personnel that could stay in our dorms free of charge so they didn't have to go home and expose their families to the illness. We also had Lowe's Home Improvement that came in as a partner that provided bedding and microwaves and TVs to make it kind of very homely a place for the medical folks to stay. And then later on, we made an effort to try to get vaccines to the community. We gave over 8,000 shots to not only faculty and staff, but our community members, to other universities, to Trenton State Community College. We also gave shots to Montgomery Public Schools, Autauga, Elmore County Schools, Pike Road Schools, and opened it up for the broader community. So that's kind of our way to kind of give back to our community. I really have to thank the faculty and staff at Auburn University at Montgomery, our nursing program, our technology program. Everybody came to say we're here to help, and so that's kind of what we did, and we feel like we're happy to do that. We teach our students it's important to give back to your community, and hopefully we demonstrate it during this COVID time. Our community, not just AUM, but all the people in our community really want Montgomery to prosper and grow and be kind of a really nice place to live and raise a family. And to see all these organizations come together, there were other organizations that did the same thing, to come together to help out during a time of crisis, regardless of what your political views are or whatever. Everybody came together to help out. So it really is strong hope for the future. And now that we're dealing with this Delta variant, I'm very confident that our community will come together and get through all of this.
Before we go, now that we have rightly celebrated our River Region heroes, let me take a moment to sound the cymbals for Samaritan. As it has been for so many people and businesses, this year has been a busy and exhausting time for the center. As you can imagine, this pandemic has frayed nerves and driven anxieties to the brink of disaster and beyond. The demand for mental health services has skyrocketed, and the Samaritan Center has risen to meet the need. At the beginning of this viral era, we had to transition from face-to-face to online counseling sessions with our clients. And that was no small feat. Then with vaccinations and fewer infections, we tried to return to the ideal face-to-face sessions. Alas, unbeknownst to the world, the Delta variant was yet to come. Delta is here, and we are again finding our way forward, utilizing a hybrid technique of counseling. Some clients are seen using teletherapy, and some are seen face-to-face. In our back-and-forth path to hybridization, our business model has required a nimbleness that we didn't know that we possess. But we found that we could handle these strange times. Last year at this event, we mentioned that we had had about 10,000 client visits for the year of 2020. But this year, that number will climb to more than 11,000. In July of this year, for the first time in our history, to our dismay, it became necessary to call a moratorium on accepting new clients because the demand overwhelmed our capacity to see people in a timely manner. Anticipating new clinicians on board, the center has now lifted that moratorium, but still that pressure to see more and more clients exists. The center will never stop trying to meet the need. It will find its way forward, and we'd like to thank some of those counselors who are at the event tonight for all that they have done. Rebecca Morris, Clinical Director and Counselor. Christy Holding, Marketing Director and Counselor. Alina Burbage, Dr. Jessica Gibby Fernandez, Dr. Kim Hamlin, Sarah McCroy, Dr. Tarman Seaway, And I'd also like to acknowledge the Samaritan Front Office, Katie Nixon, Director of Operations, Cassandra Thomas, Cass Whitney. I'd also like to thank our event coordinator, Brooke Mills. And I'd also like to acknowledge these Samaritan board members who are with us tonight: Brian Key, Bob Northcutt, Stephanie Peavy, Kimberly Robinson, Pat Sheegan, and last but not least, I'd like to recognize once again our director, our executive director, Carrie Coleman. Let me also add that the original idea for this celebration was the brainchild of our Bob Northcutt. Thanks to all of you, counselors and board members alike, for your work and your guidance.